You have no idea what it means to lead by example, do you? My words sliced through the silence in Diane's small office behind her cafe. 20 years have passed since she told me I didn't belong in her family, yet the memory still burns. Now she sits across from me, no longer the imposing figure from my childhood, but a woman whose business is failing, whose pride has crumbled enough to seek help from the very organization I built. Her eyes widen slightly. I, I'm just trying to save my business, Sarah. I tap her grant application with my index finger. Your cafe is struggling because you overextended yourself, took out loans without proper planning, and refused to update your marketing or menu. Now you want me to bail you out. Diane's face pales as understanding dawns. You're the one reviewing my application? A humorless laugh escapes me. Ironic, isn't it? The woman who once packed my suitcase and shipped me off to relatives I barely knew now needs my help. The old Diane would have bristled with defiance. This one just looks down at her hands. 20 years can change a person. I should know. But what hasn't changed is the question that has followed me since I was 15. What does it mean to truly belong somewhere? Her office smells of coffee and desperation, a far cry from the vanilla-scented perfection she'd maintained in my father's house. The walls are thin enough that I can hear the muted conversations of customers, the hiss of the espresso machine. Beyond the small window, afternoon light casts long shadows across the floor. It feels fitting somehow. This diminished version of the woman who once loomed so large in my nightmares. I had no idea, she whispers, her fingers nervously adjusting the collar of her blouse. If I had known it was your organization, you wouldn't have applied. I finished for her. I know. Flashback. The rejection. You don't belong in this family. Diane's voice was ice cold that afternoon when I was 15. My suitcase sat packed by the door. My father Thomas hovered nearby, eyes fixed on the floor as always. He wouldn't look at me. I don't understand, I managed, my voice trembling. Why are you sending me away? It's for the best, she said, her tone clipped. You'll be happier with your relatives. This arrangement hasn't worked for any of us. She said it so casually as if uprooting my life was just another item on her to-do list, right between pick up dry cleaning and attend Melissa's recital. I glanced at my father, silently begging him to intervene. Mom had been gone for 6 years, and for a while, it had been just us. We'd been close then. I'd watch him tinker with electronics in his workshop, handing him tools before he even asked for them. He taught me how to build simple circuits, his eyes lighting up when I understood a concept quickly. But that connection faded when Diane entered our lives. A corporate executive with perfectly manicured nails and a smile that never reached her eyes, she'd swept into our messy, grief-stained world with promises of stability and normalcy. What she really wanted was a fresh canvas for her perfect family portrait, one that didn't include reminders of my father's previous marriage. Dad, I whispered. He shifted uncomfortably. Try to understand, Sarah. This will be better for everyone. Everyone. Not me. I remember the precise moment I realized he wouldn't fight for me. The slight slump of his shoulders, the way his eyes darted to Diane for approval. He'd already made his choice, and it wasn't me. Something inside me hardened then, a protective shell forming around the soft, vulnerable part that still believed in fairy tales and happy endings. The living room where this scene played out had once been filled with my mother's things, colorful throw pillows, mismatched bookshelves overflowing with dog-eared paperbacks, framed photos of our family vacations. Diane had methodically erased all traces of her, replacing warmth with sterile elegance. Beige walls, matching furniture sets, artwork chosen to complement the decor rather than speak to the soul. Melissa, Diane's 13-year-old daughter, watched from the staircase, her expression a mixture of discomfort and relief. We had never bonded, Diane had made sure of that, subtly pitting us against each other, lavishing attention on her daughter while finding fault with everything I did. Your things are packed, Diane continued, gesturing to the suitcase by the door. Your aunt and uncle are expecting you this evening. I looked at the suitcase, one suitcase for 15 years of existence. What hadn't fit inside had been deemed unnecessary. Later, I would discover she'd thrown away my mother's old sweater, the one I slept with when nightmares came. Too ratty, she'd explained when I confronted her during a brief visit months later. Unsuitable. Like me. Flashback. The aftermath. That night at my relative's house, I cried until my throat burned. I kept waiting for my phone to ring, for my father to call and say it had all been a terrible mistake, that he was coming to bring me home. The call never came. My relatives weren't cruel, but they weren't warm either. They'd agreed to take me as a favor to my father, not because they particularly wanted another teenager in their home. I was a guest who never left, a responsibility they hadn't asked for but dutifully accepted. Your father just needs time, my aunt told me during those first weeks. Diane comes from a family where appearances matter. Her parents were socially prominent but emotionally distant. She's trying to create the perfect life she never had. Perfect meant no reminders of failure or loss. I was both. My room was in the basement, clean but sparse, with a small window that provided a ground-level view of the driveway. I could see feet passing by, car tires, and occasionally a curious squirrel. At night, I'd stare at that window, imagining headlights pulling up, my father rushing to collect me, to apologize for his momentary insanity. When the fantasies became too painful, I forced myself to stop. I became practical about my survival. I created routines that kept me moving forward. Homework immediately after school, then my part-time job at the local grocery store, then volunteer hours at the community center, then studying until exhaustion granted me dreamless sleep. My cousin, a college freshman who lived at home, occasionally tried to include me in his life, inviting me to movies or to hang out with his friends. But I felt like a charity case, the sad girl with the tragic backstory. I preferred the solitude of the library, where no one expected me to smile or make conversation. I threw myself into school, worked part-time jobs, and volunteered whenever I could. Books became my escape, their pages the only place where I felt truly at home. The library became my sanctuary, its quiet corners offering solace when the weight of not belonging became too heavy to bear. The volunteer coordinator at the community center, an older woman named Mrs. Fernandez, was the first person since my mother who seemed to truly see me. You have a gift for connecting with people, she told me one day after I'd helped organize a resource fair for low-income families. These people feel invisible to the world. You make them feel seen. Her words lingered in my mind, planting a seed that would eventually grow into my life's purpose. My father called every Sunday at exactly 5 p.m. Our conversations were brief, awkward. He asked about school, about whether I needed anything. I answered politely, never telling him what I really needed, him to stand up to Diane, him to bring me home. After 6 months, the calls became monthly. After a year, they stopped altogether. I heard from my aunt that he and Diane had relocated for his job. They didn't leave a forwarding address. Present day. The dilemma, Sarah? Diane's voice pulls me back to the present. I understand if you want to reject my application. I study her face, searching for the cold, calculating woman who had so casually discarded me from her life. Instead, I see someone diminished, her designer clothes replaced by a simple blouse and pants, her once perfect hair now showing strands of gray. This isn't about what I want, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. It's about doing what's right. I open her file again, scanning the details of her cafe's financial struggles. After retiring from corporate life, Diane had sunk her savings into this small business, clearly unprepared for the realities of entrepreneurship. Classic Diane, assuming her corporate success would automatically translate to a new field, too proud to ask for guidance until failure was imminent. My assistant Jessica's words echo in my mind. You're not just deciding her fate. You're setting an example for yourself, for this organization, and for everyone who's ever looked up to you. The irony doesn't escape me. Community Bridges, the nonprofit I built, exists precisely to help people who feel cast aside find their footing again. People like my 15-year-old self. 2 days ago, when I first discovered Diane's application, I'd nearly thrown it in the trash. The shock of seeing her name on our standard form had sent me reeling back through time, to that awful day when she decided I wasn't worthy of being part of her family. My hands had trembled as I flipped through the pages, reading her desperate plea for funding. I'd called Eleanor that evening, my mentor since the early days of Community Bridges. "What's on your mind?" she'd asked, immediately sensing my distress. Diane Fletcher, I'd replied, the name still bitter on my tongue. Your stepmother? What about her? I'd explained the situation, trying to keep my voice level, professional. Part of me wants to throw the application in the trash, I'd admitted. But another part of me feels like, I don't know, like this is some kind of test. Eleanor had been quiet for a moment. Do you think she knows it's your organization? No, I'd said firmly. She wouldn't have applied if she did. Then the question isn't about her, Eleanor had said. It's about you. What kind of person do you want to be in this moment? Her words had hit me hard. I want to do what's right, I'd said, though my voice had wavered. Then take your time, she'd replied. You don't have to decide today. Now, sitting across from Diane, I finally understand what Eleanor meant. This moment isn't about Diane's redemption. It's about my own integrity. I'm willing to approve partial funding, I say finally. But there are conditions. Diane looks up, surprise and cautious hope crossing her face. You'll need to attend mandatory management workshops. You'll implement a new marketing strategy. You'll provide regular progress reports. This isn't charity, Diane. It's a chance to prove you can change. She nods slowly, relief washing over her features. Thank you, Sarah. I won't let you down. I almost laugh at the familiarity of those words. How many times had I said them to my father, to teachers, to anyone who might offer a moment's approval? Always striving, always trying to prove my worth to people who should have valued me from the start. Don't thank me yet, I say, closing her file. The real work is just beginning. Flashback. Building something new. The day I founded Community Bridges was the first time I felt truly purposeful. I was 25, armed with a degree in social work and business management, and a vision born from my own experience of displacement. People need bridges, not walls, I explained to my first small team of volunteers. They need someone who believes in them when they've been told they don't belong. We started small, a cramped office, donated furniture, and boundless determination. Our first success was helping a struggling single mother get funding to finish her nursing degree. When she came back 2 years later, licensed and employed, to donate to our cause, I knew we were onto something meaningful. Each person we helped was another brick in the foundation of my new identity. No longer was I defined by rejection. I was defined by my ability to create spaces where others could belong. The journey hadn't been easy. Our first grant application was rejected. Our second was approved, but for less than half the requested amount. I worked 80-hour weeks, waiting tables at night to support myself while building the organization during the day. I slept on a futon in our office when deadlines loomed, subsisting on vending machine snacks and determination. Jessica joined in our second year, a sharp-minded business major who turned down corporate offers to work for our cause. I want to do something that matters, she'd said during her interview, eyes bright with conviction. She became my right hand, challenging my ideas when necessary, supporting me through setbacks, celebrating our victories with the same fierce joy that fueled our toughest days. As our reputation grew, so did our impact. By 32, Community Bridges had become one of the most respected nonprofits in the region. We managed scholarships, funded local businesses, and helped struggling families rebuild their lives. The work filled me with pride, and for the first time, I felt like I truly belonged somewhere. I thought about Diane less and less as the years passed. The wound of her rejection scabbed over, then scarred, then faded to a barely perceptible mark. Or so I believed until her name appeared on that grant application. My personal life remained relatively solitary. I dated occasionally, but never let anyone get too close. Jessica teased me about it sometimes, how I could pour endless compassion into strangers' lives but kept my own heart carefully guarded. Some things break and can't be fixed, I told her once, after a particularly persistent suitor had finally given up. Or maybe they just need the right kind of repair, she countered, ever the optimist. Perhaps that's why Diane's application had shaken me so deeply. It reopened questions I thought I'd resolved, about forgiveness, about healing, about what it means to move on without letting go entirely. At the cafe, following through, a week after our meeting, I returned to Diane's cafe. This time, I'm accompanied by Michael, the business consultant we've assigned to work with her. The place is nearly empty, Just two elderly men playing chess in the corner and a college student with headphones, surrounded by textbooks. Foot traffic is worse between 2 and 4, Diane explains as she leads us to a table. I've tried various promotions, but nothing seems to work. Michael nods, making notes on his tablet. We'll look at your customer data, see if we can identify patterns. The first workshop is tomorrow, right? Diane nods, a flash of anxiety crossing her face. I recognize it immediately, the fear of being judged, of being found wanting. How strange to see my own insecurities reflected in the woman who had once been the source of them. I've never been good at being a student, she admits. I'm used to being in charge. Sometimes the strongest leadership comes from knowing when to listen, I reply, surprising myself with the lack of edge in my voice. She glances at me, something like respect flickering in her eyes. I'm beginning to see that. As Michael continues his assessment, asking about suppliers and expenses, I wander around the cafe. The space itself is pleasant, large windows, comfortable seating, a small bookshelf in the corner. But the menu board is faded, the display case half empty, the walls bare where local art could add character and draw in the creative crowd from the nearby college. I snap a few photos with my phone, making mental notes. Despite myself, I'm thinking like a consultant now, not a wounded child. It's easier this way, focusing on the business, not our history. When Michael steps outside to take a call, Diane approaches me hesitantly. I never thought I'd see you again, she says quietly. Let alone like this. I maintain a professional distance. Life has a way of coming full circle. She nods, twisting a dish towel in her hands. Your father. He regretted how things happened. He just never knew how to fix it. The mention of my father sends an unexpected jolt through me. Is he? He passed away 3 years ago, she says softly. Heart attack. It was sudden. Something inside me deflates. Not grief exactly, that connection had withered long ago, but the final death of possibility. There would never be a reconciliation now, never an explanation or apology. Whatever questions I had would remain forever unanswered. I'm sorry, I say automatically. He kept track of you, you know, she continues. Through mutual friends. He was proud when he heard about your organization, about the good you were doing. I don't know what to do with this information. Pride without presence is meaningless. We should focus on the cafe, I say, changing the subject. That's why we're here. The transformation. The cafe's transformation over the next few months mirrors something shifting inside me. What began as a professional obligation, monitoring Diane's progress, receiving reports from Michael, our business trainer, becomes something more complex. 1 month in, Michael sends me his first comprehensive assessment. She's actually implementing the changes, he notes with surprise. Most clients resist at first, but she's diving in. New menu items, local art on the walls, partnership with the college's music department for weekend performances. She's working harder than people half her age. I find myself checking his reports with increasing interest, comparing day before photos with current images of the cafe. The place is slowly coming alive, not just in decor, but in energy. Customer reviews online have shifted from lukewarm to enthusiastic. She's really taking to the workshops, Michael tells me during one of our check-ins. She's even started mentoring some of her younger staff. It's like she's finally realized what it means to lead by example. At first, I attribute my interest to professional pride, another successful community bridges intervention. But there's something more, a question nagging at the edges of my consciousness. If Diane can change, what does that mean for the narrative I've built around my past? I visit unannounced one afternoon to see for myself. The cafe buzzes with energy I hadn't felt during my first visit. The scuffed floors have been refinished, the menu updated with seasonal offerings. A bulletin board near the entrance features local events and artwork. College students occupy most tables, textbooks spread wide, laptops open. A young barista chats animatedly with customers as she crafts elaborate drinks. And there's Diane, standing at the register, chatting warmly with a customer, a smile on her face that looks genuine, not practiced. She's wearing a simple apron over casual clothes, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail rather than the perfect coif she'd maintained during my childhood. She spots me and waves me over, surprising us both with the gesture. Sarah, I wasn't expecting you. Thought I'd drop by and see how things are going, I reply, glancing around the bustling cafe. Looks like business is good. It is, she says, pride flickering in her eyes. Thanks to you. It's not just me, I say. You did the work. You earned this. Diane hesitates, then nods. Still, I wouldn't have gotten here without your help. A young barista approaches, looking uncertain. Miss Fletcher, we're out of the caramel syrup. Should I run to the supply store or substitute with the vanilla? I expect Diane to make the decision unilaterally, the autocratic manager I'd imagined her to be. Instead, she asks, what do you think, Zoe? You're the one who makes most of the specialty drinks. The girl brightens. I've been experimenting with that homemade salted caramel we tried last week. Customers seem to love it even more than the commercial stuff. Diane nods. Then let's use that. Show Jason how to prepare it, so we always have backup. After the girl leaves, I raise an eyebrow. That's not the management style I expected from you. Shadow crosses her face. I spent decades believing control meant strength. It cost me more than I realized. We sit at a corner table, and for the first time, our conversation feels almost normal. She talks about the challenges of running the cafe, the lessons she's learned, her plans for the future. I didn't think I'd enjoy mentoring, she admits, but it's been rewarding. The younger staff, they remind me of myself when I first started out. It feels good to help them find their way. The irony isn't lost on me. The woman who couldn't make room in her life for a 15-year-old girl now finds fulfillment in guiding others. What happened? I ask suddenly. After I left, with you and my father. Diane's hands tighten around her mug. It wasn't the fairy tale I thought it would be, she says finally. Melissa went through a rebellious phase in high school, drugs, staying out all night. Your father withdrew more and more. We were like three strangers living in the same perfect house. She takes a sip of her coffee. I threw myself into my career, climbed the corporate ladder, became the youngest female VP in the company's history. But the higher I climbed, the emptier I felt. And Melissa? I ask, curious despite myself. She's a therapist now, if you can believe it, Diane says with a small laugh. Specializes in family trauma. Says she was inspired by her dysfunctional home to help others heal. We talk weekly. She's been encouraging me to reach out to you for years, but I never had the courage. Until you needed money, I can't help saying. She accepts the jab with a nod. Until I needed money, she agrees. Though I had no idea it was your organization. The universe has a strange sense of humor. As I leave, she calls after me. Sarah? I turn back. I was wrong, she says simply. About everything. I'm sorry it took me so long to see that. I don't respond, but something inside me shifts, like a door long rusted shut beginning, ever so slightly, to creak open. Resolution. Setting free 1 month later, I sit at my desk reviewing Michael's latest report on Diane's cafe. Sales have tripled since implementing the new strategies. Employee retention has improved. Customer reviews are glowing. Attached to the email is a photo of Diane behind the counter, smiling as she hands a customer a pastry. She looks genuinely happy, not just proud or determined, but content. I stare at the image for a long time, feeling a mix of emotions I can't quite name. This is what I'd hoped for when I approved the grant, not just financial recovery, but personal growth. Diane has found a way to adapt, to lead, to build something meaningful again. But most importantly, I realize I've found a way to let go. Jessica knocks softly and enters my office, placing a cup of tea on my desk. You've been quiet lately, she says, leaning against the doorframe. Still thinking about Diane? I nod, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. It's strange. For so long, I told myself I didn't care about her or what she thought of me, but now I don't know. Seeing her change, it's harder than I expected. Harder how? Jessica asks, her tone curious. Because it means I can't hold on to the anger anymore, I admit. She's not the same person who sent me away, and that scares me in a way. Jessica smiles gently. Letting go of anger isn't weakness, Sarah. It's strength. It means you're moving forward even if she's still catching up. Her words resonate more than I expected. Maybe Jessica is right. Maybe it is time to let go, not to forgive entirely, but to release the weight of the resentment I've carried for so long. That evening, I receive an email from Diane. It's brief, almost tentative. Sarah, I wanted to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm trying. I hope one day I can prove that to you. I stare at the screen, rereading the words until they blur. It isn't much, but it's more than I'd ever expected from her. Progress, Jessica says when I show her the email the next day. Maybe, I reply, though I'm not ready to call it that just yet. That evening, I meet Jessica for dinner to celebrate our organization's recent achievements. Over a plate of pasta, she leans across the table. So, what's next for you? She asks. You've built this incredible nonprofit. You've faced down the ghosts of your past, and you've come out stronger for it. What's the next big thing on your horizon? I smile, considering her question honestly. I think I just want to keep doing what we're doing, helping people, making a difference, but maybe. I trail off, an idea forming. Maybe what? She presses, eyes lighting up. Maybe it's time to expand, I say slowly. Not just grants, but mentorship programs, workshops for people like Diane, business owners who need guidance and support to adapt. Jessica grins. Now that's the Sarah I know, always thinking ahead. 2 days later, I make a decision that surprises even me. I call Diane and invite her to coffee, not at her cafe, but at a neutral location, a small park between our offices. She's already there when I arrive, sitting on a bench, feeding crumbs to eager pigeons. She looks up as I approach, surprise and caution warring on her face. Thank you for meeting me, I say, sitting beside her. Of course, she replies. Is everything okay with the grant? The grant is fine, I assure her. This is personal. Diane goes very still, waiting. I spent years defining myself by what happened between us. I begin. By the rejection, the abandonment. Every success I achieved was partly fueled by a desire to prove you wrong. She winces but doesn't interrupt. But I'm tired of giving the past that much power, I continue. I don't want to forgive you, Diane. Not yet, maybe not ever. But I don't want to be tethered to you by anger either. I understand, she says quietly. I'm not looking for a relationship, I clarify. But I'm willing to acknowledge that you're trying to be a better person now than you were then. That's something, I guess. She nods, her eyes glistening. It's more than I deserve. Maybe, I agree. But it's what I need to move forward completely. We sit in silence for a moment, watching the pigeons squabble over the last of the crumbs. It's not comfortable, exactly, but it's not painful either. Just two people who once hurt each other terribly, finding a way to exist in the same world without continuing the damage. As I walk home that night, the city lights glimmer like stars brought down to earth. The work I've done has always been about more than just grants or numbers. It's about giving people a chance to grow, to change, to become better versions of themselves. Diane's journey has shown me that growth is possible even in the most unlikely circumstances. I don't need closure from her. I've found it in myself. The next morning, I send Michael a reply to his email about the cafe's progress. Great work, I write. Let's keep the momentum going. It isn't flashy or dramatic, but it's enough. For the first time in 20 years, I feel truly free. Free to move forward, to dream bigger, and to let the past be just that, the past. I no longer wonder what it means to belong. I've built my own place in the world, one strong enough to include even those who once excluded me. Not because they deserve it, but because I choose it. And in that choice lies a power greater than rejection could ever take away.